Welcome to the Jedi Ranger. I'm JohnBerry555, and today I'm reviewing the 7th episode of Star Trek Strange New Worlds Season 3. The episode is What is Starfleet? Now, as I understand it, the Star Trek fandom had some thoughts on this episode, and I do understand where they were coming from. This is actually my second take at recording this review, and I'm glad I'm doing another take because I feel like I'll be able to better articulate my thoughts. And I think the problem this episode comes that this is a genre piece. It's a mockumentary. However, it's not a good mockumentary, for lack of a better term. And I think it comes to the fact that they tried to do a mockumentary, but they made the Beto Ortegas, so Eric Ortegas' brother, who's the documentarian, a character in this episode, not just the person making the documentary and the person asking the questions. And by making him a character with a character arc, that fundamentally changes this from a mockumentary into just a regular episode. When you look at some of the other genre pieces Strange New Worlds did, it was done really well. Take the musical episode, Subspace Rhapsody. Perfect. Yes, they called out the fact that this is weird that they're singing, but guess what? It works in the context of the episode, and it was really well done. The episode where they crossed over with with Lower Decks, those scientists, again, they brought the animated characters in, and because they knew we wanted to see animated Strange New Worlds characters, they basically made it that they were drunk on Orion liquor. Perfect. It worked so good as an ending gag. It wasn't the premise of the episode, which I don't think would have worked as well. Seeing animated characters in live action but still be their animated selves was great. It worked. But here, the genre piece that they didn't work. Earlier this season, they had basically a zombie episode. Yeah, Shelter to Chikafori. And it worked with how they did it. And a space adventure hour too. Again, that was another genre piece, but it worked better than this episode did, which is also a genre piece. Now, I will say too, that the premise of this episode, the premise of the mockumentary is really, really good until the very end. They're asking tough questions about what is Starfleet. Are they as really good as they say? And until like the last 10 minutes of the episode, it seems like the thing is like they generally try to do good, but they are still the military arm of the Federation, and the problems that comes with being a military and an exploratory and expanding power do have a stain on it. And they didn't do that. They backtracked it, making, that stuff was all because Beto was originally just mad at Starfleet for the strange relationship he had with his sister and the fact that she got injured with the fight with the Golden Hegemony. And that totally undoes everything that the mockumentary was trying to do. In my opinion, the mockumentary at the beginning was set up to be this profound and debate on what is the nature of Starfleet, and it was going to be that Starfleet tries to do its best, but sometimes we have to make tough, hard choices and won't always get it right. But no, it basically backtracked and was, Starfleet, yes, there's tough situations, but ultimately they always do the right thing. And in my opinion, yes, that is what Starfleet is in the story, but not in universe. For a mockumentary that's supposed to be in universe, they need to actually have something profound to say. And Star Trek has always struggled with talking about human society in a profound way. It's always this effect of one bad actor and there's no more systemic problems of humanity. Star Trek has always looked at current humans through the lens of the alien societies they come across, those planets of the week. I said this in one of my Star Trek as a sequel trilogy of Skywalker Saga review videos. I don't remember which one, probably both actually, but go check it out. They're already out on my channel. But I said that Star Trek is inherently more conservative than Star Wars. Yes, Star Trek is extremely socially progressive and work with the type of society they generally portray. They portray lots of the things that we find, lots of things as backwards. They portray greed as backwards. They portray aggression as backwards. But the thing is, that works when you're not taking a look at Starfleet and the Federation itself. When you're doing that, Star Trek has generally fumbled. They've done it before and it can be done really well. I think Deep Space Nine did a pretty good job about it. Of course, Deep Space Nine did a good job about it. But in other examples, it always ends up being one bad apple. So remember, the saying is one bad apple spoils a bunch. In this episode, could have been saying something about Starfleet and about the Federation, how they stand for good ideals, they stand for good things, but sometimes the reality of things means they have to make hard decisions. And those decisions won't always be the morally best thing, but maybe the only good option in a complicated scenario. But it didn't say that. And that sucked. It basically whitewashed the problems. Star Wars, by contrast, is very simply good guy versus bad guy, but yet, whenever it tackles a gray storyline, the conflict, it always does much better. So take a look at Star Wars Andor, which, especially Season 1, but even Season 2, was filled with gray, complicated scenarios and situations where not really one good solution, just what is the best solution in the moment given what we can do. And sometimes I can do is just nothing more than just fight the Empire. Or as many of us wanted to say, something else. But it's simple, and because of that simplicity, basically Star Wars has always looked into its own society, never into outside societies. And because that, it can have a very liberal and progressive message about the society of itself without fumbling it, because you don't have to keep the heroes per se as ideal, as perfect. You can show that the heroes are working to be better, but in Star Trek, because of the fact that the Federation is almost a status quo utopian society, you can't really do anything with it. The setting makes it more inherently conservative, because the heroes in Star Trek are always fighting to maintain the status quo, which is what proper conservatism is. I'm not talking about reactionary conservatism at all. I should have specified that. I bring all this up because this episode fundamentally shows that Star Trek always struggles, outside of Deep Space Nine, with taking a look into its own society, especially its own present society. It can comment on problems in the past, but the Voyage Home is a perfect example of that, with basically the Save the Whales message it has, and pro-environmentalism. But the thing is, it's not the Federation society itself. It's, well, what's present day when the film was made, but it's our society that they're taking a look at, never their own. And whenever they take a look at their own utopian society, it always fumbles, because, okay, good, let's take a hard look, but we can't undo the utopian society because that's a setting. And that's problematic for Star Trek, even though I love Star Trek. So, there's a lot to say, but what is Starfleet is ultimately, I think, a good episode that just fumbled its ending by forgetting what a mockumentary is, a genre piece that's a documentary about a fictional thing, and they failed to do a mockumentary as a documentary. They basically put too much drama in it, for that better term. Too much drama involving the documentarian. And that hurts the episode, because they can use that to skip over all the hard stuff by saying, oh, that was just his personal bias. And then, of course, because of that, everything is colored, because now it ends with a happy message about Starfleet. So, of course, Starfleet is going to declassify everything. They did the right thing in the end, but that ultimately hurts the episode, and it hurts the interesting premise that they started with in terms of messaging. I could go on and on talking about that, but the last thing I want to address is the fact that this episode reveals that every computer screen, every room in the Enterprise and other Starfleet ships are actively recording everything that's going on. Man, does that sound like a dystopian surveillance state? Yes. However, is that being good on Earth? Like, if I went into, I don't know, somebody's private residence, would there be a recording device recording everything? Like in 1984? I hope not. But it makes sense on Starfleet ships. Starfleet, the quasi-military exploration arm of Starfleet, of the Federation, of course they would be recording everything. They want to document what happened so they can do after action reports and figure out what exactly went on. Do we need to change anything? Or what actually happened? Did somebody make a mistake? Did someone do something wrong? Then we need to demote them or something. That's all good stuff. In the context of a Starfleet ship, it makes sense. Go elsewhere, that's a bit more questionable. Though I don't think they ever showed it in Private Quarters, the surveillance footage, so I'll give them that. But again, this episode, I can see why so many Star Trek fans felt icky about it and felt off. And that's because, and I do get it. I don't think I hated it like they did, because I really liked the premise, but the ending totally fumbled the beginning premise. And it fumbled it because it was not a regular episode. If they just had, this was, Beto Ortegas' story where he was developing this documentary and thinking back on what I want to include, what I don't want to include, and what I learned about Starfleet doing all this. I think that would have been different, but since it's presented as being in the documentary itself, it fails and becomes more of a propaganda puff piece for Starfleet than anything else. But those are just my thoughts on this. Let's keep the discussion going in the comment section down below. Do you agree with my assessment? Do you disagree? I feel like I said some pretty controversial things in this episode that not everyone's going to agree with me because, yeah, I'm saying Star Trek is conservative, but somehow extremely progressive at the same time, but fails to look at its own society because of that conservatism. But it does look at our society perfectly fine because of its liberalism and progressivism. Man, media analysis is so complicated, but let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Thank you for watching my video. I do hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please be sure to give this video a like and share. Also, consider subscribing to my channel to stay up to date on all my latest content. In the meantime, thank you for watching, and as always, have a good day, a good night, wherever you are. May the Force be with you, always.